Hello, welcome to the Psychic Kitchen. Today we have Ashala with eyeoftheworld.ca. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today?
Yeah,
Awesome
good
to
stuff.
be here. Awesome to be here. This has been a long time coming. Thank you for
Mm.
inviting me back.
hmm
No, you're welcome. There's been great the last couple of times we've had you. So do you want to? I mean, you can introduce yourself if you want. But do you want to tell us what you've been up to since the last time you were here?
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, when we were just having, it's always so interesting, I think, where we go with the pre-chats before these live shows. In
Mm.
all the different platforms that I work on, it's like there's some kind of thing that coalesces just before the show, right?
Mm.
And so we were talking a lot about travel and about like the time it takes to get from place to place and how different it is in Europe compared to North America. And so it feels like we're going through something around changing how we journey
Mm.
and like how long it takes us, um, new technologies around transportation and all that sort of stuff. But
Mm.
I was expressing that I'm in pretty much a solid productivity. I'm producing blog series and pre-recorded classes and workbooks and longer term projects with some bigger um, written material.
Mm.
And then of course my regular weekly shows on the Beyond Mystic platform and my private consultations. So it is a full schedule for me.
Mm.
And yet I am visioning down the road another year and a half. I want to start doing tours, public speaking in different parts of the world, going to sacred sites. And so I've got a little bit of that happening. I had a little conference with, well, it was actually a pretty big conference with Beyond Mystic in Ottawa in March, just like 3 weeks ago, seems like months ago already. And then I've
Mm.
got a trip to Egypt planned with Tanya and Norma of
Mm.
Adventures for Connection, which are your friends as well. So
hmm
that's kind of what's on my radar right now. Lots of productivity, but a great longing to hit the
Mm.
road, do some, connecting with people in our communities in different parts of the world. That's me.
Excellent, exciting stuff coming up. So, speaking of traveling, do you think that we will ever get to a point where we can teleport to different places? I know we can. We can astrally. We can project ourselves there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you? 'Cause I remember seeing. It's all about, from what in my understanding, it's all about the vibration of a certain place. If we can recreate or rec- recreate the vibration or frequency of a place, then we can transport ourselves there. Has that come up or at all or anything with regards to that uh, in in recent months?
Yeah, great question. And I agree with you. I agree that we are in a way looking at frequency matching. And
Mm.
so it really reminds me of manifestation, right? We know that if we are coming into a frequency alignment with something that we desire, the more we can actually almost feel it energetically, imagine it, have a really, let's just say, connected heart experience with whatever that is, it
Mm.
is starts to draw it closer to us. We can, like, miraculous things can happen. You
Mm.
think, oh, that's not going to happen, that'll take forever, and then boom, it happens. So I feel like we're starting to tease the parameters of what it takes to create those frequency matches.
Mm.
And I feel like, in answer to your question, Jimmy, we're going to start by it being more of a path of ease, is what I'm
Mm.
hearing. So, for example, let's say I'm talking about coming to the UK. I want to spend time there. And yet I'm like, oh, I'm buried under all this work. And so starting to match where there's a path of ease, and I'm like imagining what I want to do in the UK, who I want to connect with, and then maybe all of a sudden there's a, hey, Ashala, we'll fly you here for a week.
Yeah.
I can take a week off my work schedule. Like those
Mm.
kinds of things is where we just start to align with options that we maybe couldn't have if we tried to make them happen. I got to save my money and I got to pick a big schedule and then I got to set up a place to speak. No, that's a lot of work, right? But if I frequency match where my longing is on the other side going, yeah, we feel it too. We're going to connect. It's that kind of manifestation magic. Really. Yeah.
So basically, yeah, that's great. So don't try and force anything that doesn't feel right. It's almost like let go in a sense. And I know it's all about all that thing about going with the flow and everything like that. And I think there's a sort of a misunderstanding about that, because it doesn't necessarily mean do nothing. It just means kind of, I don't know, less is more sometimes. If we sort of see what's in our vicinity and deal with the things that we need to deal with, but then just leave the rest almost, in a sense, and allow other forces that we maybe are not necessarily consciously aware of to handle that. And once we deal with the internal struggles that come up, then I feel like everything else will be taken care of. So
lovely. I mean, what you're speaking of in a way is a type of energetic frequency delegation. Like we're looking at, so I pulled these three cards. I just laid them out while we were talking, and starting with this is where we go inward a bit, just to go like take a read on where we are. What are we longing for? Because there's always some type of longing, right? Like if we pay attention to what longing is about, not desperate attachment, fear, and trying to scramble towards something. I'm talking about true longing, which is where you go, oh, if I really had it my way, this is where I would be, or this is what I would have more of in my life. That kind of longing, right? And it's like exactly what you just said, Jimmy, where we're not trying to go outward to make something happen. We're going inward to tap into the longing. And it can happen very suddenly without a lot of effort, as you just said. Once we tap into that real thread, they're showing me almost like a golden thread. Now that gets into Astral Connect, right? So a golden thread between your longing and that which you are destined to connect with. And then it's all in the realm of spirit. It's like all your guides, your ancestors, the interdimensional versions of yourself are all working on that. And you stay in the frequency of what you desire, and be prepared that when it starts to come your way, you don't go, oh, no, I'm not ready. Right? It's like, I want it, but no, I don't want it right now. It's like, are we really saying, no, I don't want it right now? Or are we saying, okay, I need some more support to get ready to engage with that thing? But thank you for starting to manifest it. It's like they're showing me the particle accelerator where you're like, it's like you're already like, oh, here it comes. I'm already manifesting it. And then if we go, no, I'm not ready, then it disappears again, right?
Do you feel like a lot of people are avoiding going inward right now? I've seen myself in a lot of dreams lately, like going into like these deeper access points of my subconscious. Have you seen that with your own clients? Like people are avoiding it, so now it's getting kind of pulled to the surface.
Good point, Thomas. Yeah, definitely, personally as well. And it's interesting. Like my daughter and I, we often talk about our dreams in the morning. Well, we try not to. We try not to get into these big, heavy conversations in the morning, but it happens. It seems invariably it happens often. And it's so revealing and sometimes very humbling and almost embarrassing when you see, oh, yeah, it's sort of like our dirty laundry is getting hung out of like, oh, yeah, this is actually, I think that I'm doing all this stuff, but I've got all these still miles to go. There's so much that still is just like you were saying, Thomas, there's all this yuck that we're like moving through, and it's the year of the wood snake. So we want those old skins to come off. And guess what? when they come off, they look gross. You ever seen a snake shed its skin? It for like whatever the period of time, often it's several days, even a week or more. It's just sitting there looking like it's dead, and it looks ugly. It looks like the skin is all like, it's turning white and all crusty and everything. And then when it slithers out of that old skin, it's perfectly vibrant, new version of itself. It's not like some weak little vulnerable thing. It's like, wow, so colorful and vibrant and healthy underneath that. So I think the message is we are on the brink of that new version of ourselves. And this yucky, going inward and seeing all this yucky stuff, don't get psyched out by that. Like, that's clearing. It's coming up so it can come out and
exactly
release.
Yes, definitely. I have a question. There are people, and I, in a way, and I used to be one of them, who they don't know what they want, because we always talk about manifestation and creation, and we can manifest this in our heart's desire and all of that stuff. But I mean, aside from the the material things, about wanting a new car or whatever, or loads of money, it's kind of, that doesn't necessarily seem to be fulfilling, to some people at least, and to me. But there are people who kind of, like I'm saying, that they don't necessarily know what they want. Like, for example, what they want to do or whatever. What advice would you give to someone who doesn't know what they want, insofar as what they want to do for a career, or someone who just doesn't know what to do and doesn't know what they want to manifest?
Okay, well, there's a few things around that. It's a very, very, very common thing that I work with. And so there's a whole pile of little remedies. I'm going to line them up like little jars on a shelf, and you can pick and choose what you want. There's no have-tos with any of this. It's just, these are little, and I'm literally looking at the cards and doing this with the cards. I'm going to hold each one up because I just talk and shuffle and then things show up. Anyway, so what we're really talking about is coming into alignment with a more whole version of ourselves. The sun is like the ultimate card in the tarot. It's like, it's sort of like the most positive, exalted version of ourselves. And we've been living under a rock for a long time. So, when you first even try to step towards the sun, it's pretty blinding, right? It's like, you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to go back inside. It's a bit overwhelming. So, interesting, that it feels like it starts, well, the guides are saying it starts at night. Now, we talked about dreams a little bit. It starts in a more almost like the bottom of the barrel feeling, where you're at your lowest. You're like, you're kind of like, oh man, is this all there is? And you hear people often when they're in that state going outside at night and looking at the stars and feeling something. There's like, they look up and they're like, wow, this is so humbling and so beautiful. And why am I here? And it feels like that moment because they're saying the sun is a star. And so if it's too big and bright for us, the sun, start with the stars, start at night, and that's your most intimate inner world. Like, it's spiritual. It's a spiritual. So you're going to start by going, I don't know what I want in the world. I don't know where I want to be. I don't know what I want to do for my offering. I don't know what kind of relationships I want. But I do know that I'm drawn to spiritual things. I want to heal. I want to know more about spirituality. And that's that nighttime version of the sunshine, right? So you start in that inner place of curiosity about spirituality, which is exactly what you guys are doing in the world. It's exactly what you're gifting people with, is like, look, you know, when you're in that place of the being lost, a lost soul at night, in the dark time of your growth, that's when you can see the stars, which is actually a whole pile of suns.
Mm.
And then you can kind of almost see, like, there's a lot of destinies, there's a lot of options. We don't just have one path. There's a lot of ways we can manifest who we are. And so to me, this is saying start inward.
Mm.
What I understand from astrology basis, because I'm not an astrologist, but I've heard some people talk about this, is that we're in the same energy as like 1776. And what I've seen with clients and being online a lot with readings, whatnot, is that all these people feel the world is breaking. But I don't think it's breaking. I think it's like some part of us is waking up.
Reborn.
People hate being uncomfortable. They hate it. So like when they're uncomfortable, it's like, if anything, where it's political on whatever. But I think people are equating it to that. But I think the energy was already there to begin with. But it was like, it's like, when I've had loads and loads of mentorships. It's like the number one thing I've had. But you have to get people to start looking inward at what's going on at their own patterns, whether that's subconscious or whatever. And we say, like, I'm going to kind of go in different directions. You can manifest your own reality, which you can, but it's hard to get people just in general around the world to accept that. They are where they're at, and it's like a hot take. We get a little controversial. They are where they are because they put themselves in that position. I can say the same thing about myself. I think everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. For the new to the
Comes to your question.
Mm-hmm. And you know, so that was the first little bottle on the shelf, is that it's like a nighttime. That they just keep saying it's the nighttime, and we want to be like, we want to be out there doing the daytime, right? We want to be like, or we think we should be, and so it's that place where we go, you know what? A lot of the greatest revelations on this planet came in those wee hours of the morning, you know, your sleepless nights, your time alone, you know, in the wilderness, you're like sort of at that point where you're like, I surrender, I give it up to Creator. What am I here for? And it's in that, and then you wait for some echoes to come back to you, right? You call out, like in the desert, like, what am I here for? Give me a purpose, show me a path. And so that to me is like half of it. And that's what you're speaking about, Thomas. It's that willingness to literally pause, because we think we're going to activate or actualize by running towards something. And like, I better just pick something. And this is where people get stuck, right? Or they end up down, like, you know, you force that destiny. Or a lot of people say, well, I settled for that job, or I settled for that relationship, or I settled for that whatever, right? And then it starts to unravel. And then they're like, oh, great, now I'm back 10 paces from where I thought I wanted to get to. But the not settling for something is a very, very inward journey of being willing to go without things for a while. It's being willing to sit in the stillness, the discomfort, as you were saying, Thomas, of the emptiness. Because you can't fill up a vessel that's already filled with stuff that you just settled for. Where do you put it? Where do you put the good stuff? Because that emptying yourself out is the first part. And then you hold and you wait. And then this is where it gets exciting, because it's like the guides are showing me almost like this big giant vessel that's carved out and you think it's empty, but it's filled with like, I don't know, little grains or something that start sprouting. And then you're like, suddenly I'm curious. I've got this, I want to learn about this, or I want to, and it's where we break out of the, I want to say the prison cycle of being like, if you're in prison, you don't have time to think about what you want to do with your life or what you want to be or what you want to offer to the world. You're just thinking about surviving, right? So we're breaking out of that conditioning that we're in survival system, and it blocks our imagination and our creativity completely. It just like puts a lock down over top of that. So, and then it's also called burnout. So they give us the hamster wheel. We choose to run ourselves into the ground on it, right? And so again, we have to stop and we have to feel the discomfort. Oh God, all this running has made me sick. It's made me exhausted. I'm burned out. I have no inspiration. I don't know what I want. And then it's that taking the time to just sit in the stillness. And then you start to have these little whispers of like, ooh, I think I might have a feeling or a curiosity and imagination. Once that starts popping like popcorn, when the pan has been hot for a while and you're like, what's going on? And all of a sudden it's like pop, 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 pop. And next thing you know, it's all going crazy. Well, that is because you've held that place of spaciousness and the discomfort, as you were saying, Thomas, of I don't know what to fill this with. Wait. And let that ease of, the exhaustion, the burnout, let that dissipate. And then these new things are going to start to come into focus. Those are the little bottles.
What does the discomfort, if someone's feeling discomfort about something, what does that mean from your sort of point of view?
Well, I mean, discomfort is us caught in the time web. We are in between, what do they call it? The perceived past and the predicted future. So we are processing the traumas of the past, which live inside our physical, emotional, etheric, mental, spiritual bodies, right? So we're doing past either intergenerational inherited karma, past life karma, then this lifetime traumas, and they all live in here. And so when we stop filling our time and attention with, we can still do things with our hands. We can be productive, but to not fill our time with thinking that we're creating something like we're going somewhere. Doing more of those kinds of things that you do as part of life, like they used to say, chop wood and carry water. The discomfort is that we're caught between suddenly now we're aware of the pains from the past and the predictive programming of there's more of that ahead. If I don't feel good right now, I'm going to feel worse tomorrow. And so that's why we have discomfort when we stop. It's because we lock into the patterns of the past and the fear that we're going to continue them in the future.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And a lot of people are self-sabotaging. Like it's based upon, Tony Robbins has talked about this early in his career, that he had a certain way that he believed the world should work or his life should work. So he sabotaged his first business. And then at a certain point, he figured out why that was happening. Mm-hmm. So he had to go in and start to change his concept of reality. And I feel like a lot of people right now, their perspectives of reality, because I see it from a more social media standpoint, but it's like everyone's arguing with each other. Now, what does that do to the rest of the world if everyone's constantly arguing? Like energetically, it becomes normal. It becomes almost like brainwashing or a psyop. And people are so easily brainwashed But what does that energy do to the rest of them?
Right. Yes. I mean, I believe that, we know we have weather manipulation that's happening intentionally by certain organizations, right? And agendas. And then I also believe that we like create weather, and like what we're going through in here and how we approach our lives in here ripples out both for the positive and for the negative, right? So yeah, you're right. What is all that debating and arguing? What is that putting out in the world? It's creating more polarization, more tension. And to be fair, we are astrologically in a very, very interesting tight node where there's pretty much going to be no avoiding of that. And it's probably because we need to get clear about what we're actually taught. Like, so much has been kept hidden, and it's kind of all coming out now, right? And when that happens, it's just like when you have a rupture in a relationship where everybody's been carrying around their version of reality and all their things that they're not happy about, and then you have an argument and everybody's flinging stuff at each other, right? It's sort of like, and then you calm down and go, okay, well, that wasn't very useful. It doesn't mean there isn't love underneath that. It doesn't mean that there isn't an intention to heal. It means that all this yuck, we've been carting it around because there hasn't been a healthy way to discuss it, right? And this is where, again, relationship work, personal interpersonal work with yourself, and then your closest relationships is where you can start to do some of that work in your relationships. Guess what? That sends out a much bigger ripple than the negative. This is a thing I think people are, one of the biggest metaphysical corrections I'd like to share with humanity is, in my experience over the years and observations, even though we can say, oh man, there's so much dark force energy on the planet, it's just getting worse and worse and uglier and uglier. My version of that is that stuff that's been there all along, and it's just coming out. So what I observe is that the miracle of how much concerted effort has been put on by the dark force manipulating power dominant models in an effort to steal power and control reality, it has to be applied regularly because the energy of light is self-generating. The energy of these manipulative power dominant models have to be applied non-stop. As soon as they stop, especially right now, as we're coming to this sort of like energetic turning point where there's so much consciousness frequency building, the minute they stop locking that down, it starts to flourish. And you can see that the analogy is similar to plants that can pop up through layers of cement, this tiny little flower. How is that even possible? Like, the forces of control, even though they can be destructive, they can be frightening, they feel weighty and really like powerful, they have to be continually applied in order to maintain that power. As soon as they let go, energy, like positive evolutionary energy, takes charge and grows. So that's why real spiritual work, when you are doing that inner work, every bit of ground that you gain, right? Like this guy in the tarot, every bit of ground that he's gained, if you can hold that ground and not let that be psyched out of you, it's exponential. You get a little bit stronger. The next round, that's right, going into the boxing ring, you're a little stronger now. The next time you don't get taken down quite so fast. And then the one after that, you're a little bit stronger. So it's that feeling that we are on this evolutionary path, and that forces of creativity, harmony, balance are eternal. And any oppression and control is basically trying to manipulate those forces. But it can't do it in the long run. Like, it can do a great job of tricking, manipulating, dominating, but it has to constantly. Why do we have wars? Why have we had wars every generation for the last 8,000 years? Why? Because you have to keep hitting that button, or people will just be happy. You know, it's like they'll just align with a frequency like the natural world, where they won't bother with all of that power and dominance. It won't matter. You have to keep them traumatized to keep that going.
And I'm always, whenever evil is spoken about, I always think back of a quote by, I think it was by Neil Gaiman. I can't remember. I don't know. Not sure if that's how I pronounced it, but it says, "Evil always contains the seeds of its own destruction." And I thought that was very, very profound and very true. But I got a question from Victoria. Hey, Victoria. She says, "What are the best tips to keep the momentum and not get psyched out?"
Yeah, what a great question. What a great question. And definitely no one size fits all. Not even, thank you, Victoria, not even in a particular day is there a one size fits all. So I think, if anything, those two words I used earlier, where it's curiosity and imagination, it's your dignity as a human being to like repair that part of your psyche and give it room. Now, it's interesting because we have always at our avail the opportunity to go back and work with our inner child. And it's like, oh yeah, how new agey. Yeah, let's go heal our inner child. La la la. That's unicorns and rainbows. And I'm like, actually, the most radical thing is to work with yourself under the age of 9. Because we go back to those origin places, right? And we see, so we've got the massive trauma events that have been, as I said, distributed regularly throughout our known history right now as part of this big experiment to push us into individuation. It's actually for our greater good in the long run. But it's like, there's points in our childhood, maybe even our babyhood, maybe when we were in utero, where those ideas took root and started diminishing the light of the beautiful light of the divine human being. And, you know, some children managed to maintain that really long, almost into their teenage years. Something else happens at that point, and that's a long conversation. But when you go back to yourself at these ages between, you know, conception and age 9, there's little poignant moments where you can recover your natural curiosity, your natural imagination, and your natural gifts. Right? You talk to different indigenous cultures around the world. One of the things that hasn't been talked about a lot, but I think is going to come more and more out in the open, is that, you know, like I was just listening to an amazing Vedic palm reader that was talking about, in their traditions in India, you would palm read the baby when it was born would be read by the Vedic astrologer and palm reader. You know, their chart would be cast, you'd read their palm. And was that to control their lives? No, it was actually to hold space for the evolution and development of their natural gift. You know, you weren't trying to force them, because it's like the star card in the tarot. If you try to force it to become something, it dissipates the energy. So it's really about creating enough space and safety for the natural talent and ability of that child to rise. So curiosity and imagination, go back to yourself, especially somewhere between the ages of 7 and 9, because that's when your natural imagination and curiosity open you up to your destiny. And usually if we go back to our 7, 8, and 9-year-old, you see little seeds. So you were talking about how evil has the little seeds that of its own demise, and divinity also has little seeds that you can see them there, maybe starting to sprout or do something around 7, 8, 9. So go back to yourself in those ages and just water those seeds. They're there. They're yours. They haven't been stolen.
Definitely. And if someone can't remember their childhood, because I mean, there are some people who can't, is it a question of going into meditation, like Antonio says, or is it going to see a hypnotherapist, or just basically, I don't know, asking for it to appear in dreams? I don't know. What would you suggest?
Great question. I'm actually going to look at an answer for that. My my left brain says stimulate the imagination and the memory by doing things like looking at, like, going to see a palm reader, a really good masterful palm reader, and going to an astrologer and looking at, you could say, can you show me my transits, especially around age 7 to 9? What were the transits? What were my astrological transits then? Talking to a palm reader and saying, I really want to tap in with the seeds of my natural gifts that would have been sort of deposited into my psyche around age 7 to 9. Can you tell me what you see about myself from that perspective? So I think my left brain is going, do something to kind of give yourself a bit of a grid to work with that is, but someone else is showing you. And then that might be enough to stimulate memory. Oh, look at this. This is so sweet too. Thank you, Denise. So this is really sweet too, because one of the first things when you do inner child work is another thing. So it could be therapy, it could be hypnosis. And again, not one size fits all. So whatever you're drawn to, if you see or hear somebody talk about, I went to this person, it was amazing, and you get a feeling of a yes, it's like, yeah, that's your thing, right? And 2 months from now, it might be something totally different. So there isn't a right way and a wrong way, but follow the breadcrumbs, because once you start asking those questions, your soul is going to start to deliver little clues, like a little treasure hunt, right? And one of the first things, a lot of times when you do inner child work, you approach your child and ask your child what it wants. And we think sometimes that it's going to be like, I want to be healed. I want to be, I want to be loved. I want to be, and like, yeah, there's those feelings. But if you ask it, what would you like as a gift? Our inner children don't have any problem. Even the traumatized ones, they can say, I want an ice cream. I want a whatever, right? Like, our inner children have a lot greater sense of what it is that they desire, even if they have been traumatized. So be prepared to offer some sort of gift. Now, obviously, if your inner child says, I want a tub of, I want a gallon of ice cream and I want to stay up all night, it might not be, but you could do some kind of, maybe you're going to offer, do an offer, something like that. I don't know why I'm hearing ice cream, but make an offering, food offering, and just start playing that game of what does your inner child want as a gift.
Excellent. What about I think there's probably covered about that question from Denise about what we blocked it out. Is it basically the same, or ask it what it wants? And because obviously some uncomfortable things can come up. And
so you're gonna do the sort of left brain thing of going and seeing maybe a palmist, maybe an astrologer, getting some inputs, some actual sort of like a template to work with. Like, this is what, according to my hands and my astrology, this is what my 7 to 9 year old was kind of going through, or this is what the strengths are in that chart. Now I know a little bit about myself. Then making that space we talked about earlier, wait, ask the question, and maybe you're going to see a hypnotherapist, maybe another type of therapist, and you're going to say, I really want to work on my inner child around the age of 7 to 9. And a lot of times they will take you into a visualization where they say, ask what the child wants. And you see, this isn't going to solve everything. You're not going to give your child the tub of ice cream that you offer out into the natural world somewhere safe where the animals don't get sick on it. Like, you're not going to do that and everything heals overnight. But what you're doing is you're actually creating a connection of listening, right? And then curiosity and imagination start to open up. Then it's going to start to show up in other ways. Oh, all of a sudden I have an inspiration to do something creative. Oh yeah, I used to do that when I was a kid. I didn't even remember that. How often do we say when we're on our healing journey, I just suddenly remembered I used to love that when I was a kid?
Yeah, do things that kind of may help to bridge the connection between those two times, we say. But that's brilliant. Thank you, Ishala. And we have to, it's getting sort of near that time. So have you got any final thoughts? And just, do you want to remind everyone where we can contact you?
Well, I love doing these shows with you guys, and I would love to do more and more collaborative work. It's a very good energy, and I feel really held with a good frequency of mutual respect. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I look forward to, continuing to build this connection and do more down the road. And final thoughts. Well, this time, and I do have on my website, there's a subscribe button, doesn't cost anything. And I am putting out blog series. I've got 3 blogs since the beginning of the year. The last one was really interesting about the astrological lineups, like the nesting dolls syndrome that we're in, and what that reveals about where we are, where we actually are, which was what Thomas was saying earlier, what you were both saying. So if you would like some more guidance and inspiration, I'm going to be releasing every 2 weeks for the next several months blogs on that. So if you subscribe, you'll have access to that for free. And I invite you to do that.
Excellent. That's great. And thank you again for coming on. It was always a pleasure. And it'd be great to have you back, as always. Thomas, you got anything coming up?
I have a class I'm taking everyone to somewhere in Atlantis. It's over a port. We go there. That's this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Excellent. Right. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Au revoir.